Jake is my first son. He was a young, happy, energetic, dynamic child through his whole years of growing up. Jake had very high standards for himself. So Jake always wanted to be the best at everything. He started working in school towards college, trying to decide what he wanted to do. And that became very difficult for him because he didn't know what he wanted to do. So it really happened as he was feeling uncomfortable with the future and not seeing that direction. That's when he first came to me and said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm really anxious a lot. I'm having trouble focusing. I'm worried about everything. And he would come to me and say, Mom, can we just talk? And we could spend hours just talking about life and trying to break things down into little steps. But it came to a point where I knew it was bigger than me. So that's when I started reaching out to professional help. So he had a workup by his pediatrician. Everything was healthier than healthy, blood work, everything. So she recommended counseling, which I agreed. I thought he needed that. We couldn't find a counselor. We were referred to a couple places. The wait was 4 months, the second place 6 months. But I happened to have a friend who was a licensed clinical social worker who agreed to see him professionally to at least get him some connection. Which that in itself was challenging also, because getting a teenager to commit to going to talk to somebody, he was already saying, I'm not normal. Something's not normal. A second anxiety episode happened that was really scary. That made me take him back to the pediatrician. Scary such that he didn't want to go to work or school. He couldn't get up and go to school. So I took him back and she said, are you ready to try some medication for anxiety? And he said, yes. Well, that road led to not feeling good, lethargic. And then the pandemic hit. And he turned 18. And trying to coordinate his care was something I couldn't do anymore because he was 18. He came to me like a deer in headlights and said, Mom, I'm really scared. I don't know what to do. He goes, I'm so hopeless. I'm not getting better. And that's when I said, Jake, we have two options. We really do. We can self-admit to a behavioral health facility, or we can go to the emergency room and see if they can manage your medication. He used to do everything that was recommended. We used to meditate. We used to take walks. He would say, Mom, we just need to talk. I said, all right, let's go down to the beach. Let's walk the beach and talk, get air, exercise. He was into fitness. He worked out at the gym. He did the counseling. He tried the medications. So he agreed. He agreed to the mental health facility, which I was so proud of him for, because he knew he needed help beyond what I could give him, his family support could give him. He was admitted and he was placed on a unit because of his age, because he was considered an adult with patients suffering from drug addiction and a lot of men with PTSD, military-based. And that's when he was formally diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Before it had been anxiety disorder, depression, But this time he came out with that diagnosis and was put on the standard protocol of medications, which unfortunately the side effects of those meds for him were worse than trying to deal with the ups and downs. He stayed on his meds, but then it came to a point where he said, I can't do these meds anymore. I said, okay. And he came to me again and said, I can't do this. So I said, we have two choices: the inpatient facility or the emergency room. And he said, please don't take me back to that place. I saw things that I should have never seen, and I can't forget that. So we agreed I would take him to the emergency room. And when I got him there, he met with a provider. And the provider had just a couple questions to ask him, and within that few moment time, he Baker acted him. Once in the ER, they had to observe him, and they had a psychiatrist reevaluate him. And they had taken him completely off the whole regimen he was on, because he had stopped 5 days before by himself. And she prescribed him one medication. His new regimen from the emergency room psychiatrist was not carried out. For 8 days, he was in that facility, and he was not given appropriate care. He was in the wrong place. He was a fish taken out of the water and put on the ground to survive. I called the doctor's offices, I called the unit, I called the case managers, the social workers, I called his outpatient psychiatrist. He said, he's inpatient, I can't do anything. I called the ER psychiatrist. She said, he's no longer in my care. I said, who can talk to me and tell me what's gonna happen? And nobody could tell me. He saw a doctor, and he called me 2 days later, and he said, they're gonna release me. And I said, good. Half a day later, he calls me, he goes, they're not gonna release me. The other doctor said I couldn't leave. I have to sit in front of a judge. Where I am very distraught with his care is the lack of communication between providers. I was his prime caregiver, and they did not allow me in any of his care planning. And we got in the car, and he said, Mom, you never come back from something like this. He said, I'm just a 20-year-old kid who asked for help. I got Baker acted and was treated like a criminal. This needs to be told, because this is reality across the board. It's not a one case scenario. This happens all of the time. In the time he was in that facility, I learned of 4 people in my community of friends, colleagues, who have dealt with very similar situations. We need to be advocates. This is not a cookie cutter situation. So I'm gonna stand on a box for him and for everyone else who's struggling